Hi there. So, one of our core values at Illume is the core value of upholding high standards. Um, so, we are collectively and personally compelled to do the best and right thing. It's what I think about every day when we're making decisions, is what's the best and right thing. I try to put it into that question of what's best and right into every single solution to every single challenge that we face. While it may not always look like that from the outside, that is certainly what we try to do. It's a commitment to find the right and best way to do something. And of course, there's no one version of best, but we seek for that high standard, that that standard that's beyond ever really being able to reach, but we just keep seeking for it. That's what this quest for being remarkable is about. So today I'd like to invite you to do a quick exercise to help you explore the areas of your life where you have high standards, because one of the things about remarkable care that and invoking the idea of being remarkable into your life is that, as I've said in other of these videos, it comes when there's a connection that's made, and sometimes it's because the connection is the person that you're connecting with and you care about them. Other times it can be through something you care about, that you have high standards embedded into your being about, that the remarkable can evolve out of. The remarkable comes not from these exercises or from any of the processes or instructions about remarkable care. They come from your authentic experience and interpretation and ownership of them. So I believe we all have high standards about something. There's always something that we're committed to that is beyond, we would do anything for, we would sacrifice anything for, that we won't compromise. There are certain things. I know that at Illume, one of the things I work very, very hard to do is to be compliant, to follow the rules. I feel it's important to protect the team. I feel it's important to protect patients, although sometimes the compliance doesn't always appear to be in the best interest of the patients, but it's intended to be. I always know that. It's also in the best interest of the company, and making sure that can be around for a long time. So this is an area of high standard that I hope I always uphold. I'm very committed to making sure that we follow the rules and are compliant. This is an area that I feel is important to have extremely high standards. And it's not about perfection, it's about doing what's right and best, right? That's the idea that we're invoking here with the high standards concept. So I invite you to think about the areas of your life. Just do a little exercise with me, a little walk through your mind. Have a piece of paper out if you like, and just identify the areas of your life where you have high standards, right? And it's okay if you don't have high standards in every area of life. I don't. I can tell you I do not. But see where you do have your high standards. It could be your health and how you take care of your body. You might have really high standards. The food you eat, the way you exercise, high standards. It could be the way you take care of your physical body and the way that you put yourself together. You might have very high standards about your appearance. You might have high standards about your home, how your home is kept, how clean it is. I can think of some people in the office who have very, very high standards of cleanliness. You might have very high standards for the way that you parent. I think most parents are that way. Parenthood is such a all-encompassing, and it pulls your heart right in, and so of course you have high standards. And so just see where with your children you have high standards and what part of their life. I mean, some things I I let run wild, and other things I just can't let go, right? There's certain things that are just very important to me, the standards of for how I parent. Your standards for your family. What's okay? Where do you draw lines and have high standards? Do you need to have dinner with your family every night? Is that a standard? Is it important that your children don't spend a lot of time on technology? Is that a standard? Is it a standard that you eat protein at every meal? Like, where do you have standards? What are the things that are really for you important? Maybe it's important for you to have a certain amount of exercise, a certain amount of reading you do, a certain amount of impeccability in your life. Where do you have that? Maybe you're committed to going to church on every Sunday, and that's absolutely immovable. Maybe there's a certain amount of money that you like to save every month. There's a certain way or willingness to spend or unwillingness to spend. So where are your standards with regard to, where do you have high standards with your community, things you are committed to doing and you wouldn't back up or not do? Your values, your beliefs, your principles, where are your high standards? And just take a moment to list areas where you feel you have really high standards. I have really high standards in how I live my life and grow my life and conquer my dreams. I wouldn't have started Illume if I didn't have very high standards of my own need to conquer my own fears. High standards to conquer fears and create really cool things out of nothing. Like, that's a high standard for me. And I can't be happy if I'm not totally committed to those kinds of standards. So look to, and the question number 2 is, for what or for whom do you make sacrifices? Where are the things that you make sacrifices, that you save your money for, that you save your time for, that you work your life around so that you can do that one thing or not do that one thing? Where do you try to maneuver your life so that a particular thing can come about? Maybe it's a need for relaxation, maybe it's a need for rest, maybe it's a need for fun. Could be that. Could be anything. Where do you make your sacrifices? A time for family. And what are the ways you protect and honor these things in your life? Just look and see, what are the ways that you protect and honor specific areas of your life. Maybe it's by having limits on how much time you spend at work, or maybe it's how much time you do spend at work. Maybe it's the commitment to not complete and to not go home until you're done. What about passions that you have, where you need to make sure you read a certain book or practice a certain instrument or get enough time on the treadmill? What are the sacrifices you make? Okay, so and what are you committed to always doing, saying, or being? What are you committed to? Just see, like, what do you find yourself always committed to doing? You have to do it because it's important to you. What is something that you would find yourself saying again and again to your children? What's important to you? Ella Pearl, we always tell her, and Amelia, above all else, never lie. You know, come to us with the truth. We can deal, but if you lie, that's the cardinal sin. So the standard is to be honest. What do you refrain from doing, seeing, or being? What, in other words, what do you try to avoid? I avoid sugar, for example. What do I try to avoid doing? I try to avoid doing things that I've tried to avoid persons and people that cause me to believe that, you know, to have angry emotions. I try to make sure I don't spend time with people who make me, whose relationship causes me to feel angry. So these are standards. Why are these standards important to you? Why is it important to have high standards? Why are these things important to you? And why is it important to have high standards? I think in life sometimes we have to find our way, right? To find the things that we cherish and love. And each one of us is different. We have a different blueprint of what we cherish and love and where our standards are. And it's through that curation of knowing what's valuable to us that we can make our lives richer. And now so these are the things that you do for yourself. These are standards that you've set for yourself. And so think for a moment now about other people and the kind of care that you want to provide for others. And what would be some appropriate standards that you would want to make sure you set for yourself when caring for other people? So I invite you to take a moment to make a list of things that are important standards. And this is the question I'm going to ask my Illume employees about, which is, what are the standards that you would want to make sure you follow? Things related to timeliness, the way that you enter into your person's home, what is the standards that you want to set, how you come to work, how you're dressed, how you're prepared, what are the standards for what your mindset is when you go into somebody's home, and what you're going to be thinking about and focused on. Are there certain things, and write these down, are there certain things that you would not want to do when you are in somebody's home that is just really not okay? Things like texting to other people. Things like looking at the internet while you're taking care of somebody who's in a bed. Things like not making the effort to engage and connect in a way that's nurturing and connecting with another human while you're there on the shift. And what about how you care for the space that you're in? When you get there, how do you put it in order? Do you have standards about setting the space up and making sure standard precautions are taken, infection control, putting things in a neat and tidy order, honoring the space that you're in and making sure that it remains in as good a condition as you found it, and hopefully you leave it in better condition than you found it. And then the standards for, of course, your clinical excellence, right? Whatever procedures or care you're going to be administering, what are the standards you'd like to set? And how gentle would you like to be with that person? How do you want to make them feel? These are standards. Do you want just them to be okay, or do you want them to feel cared for? Do you want them to feel that you are treating them gently? What's your standard of care? How do you want to make people feel? And then setting your standards for how you're going to document what you're doing, both so that you can honor the patient and be observant and be present, and also because you know that it's a communication tool and you want to make sure the communication is supportive of your team and your case manager, and that it's also supportive of the company in whatever ways will allow us all to be compliant. So those are all high standards. And then look at the timeliness of completion of those notes and what level of standard you feel is important for you to be complete. What do you feel is right? What do you feel is good? And then to sort of look back again at the patient situation and how do you want to tie up your visit? What standards do you have for how you bring closure and finish and say farewell? What are your standards around that? What do you like to do? What will make you feel good about the way you left a patient or a family? And then finally, when you go get back in your car and you're ready to go home, what's your standard for how you want to re-enter into the world? How you want to take a moment, and do you want to just rush out, scramble? How do you want to feel at the end of a workday? So you get to decide what your standards are. My advice, and my invitation is for my employees to please send me use the space below to please send me a list of some of the things that you would describe as remarkable standards when you're providing care for somebody else by answering some of those questions I just asked you. So I hope that this is helping you see where your standards are and how you can elevate them and how you can bring remarkable care to the people around you, and how you can honor your standards and live a life that you feel really, really great about. All right, thank you. Have a wonderful day and go make the world a better place.